All right, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're opening up a high-stakes intelligence dossier. Listen, this isn't just theory, okay? We are looking at a gritty, real-time geopolitical reality check that maps out the next great global fracture. We're going to analyze a defining moment in modern survival strategy, how resources are being leveraged, and the absolute reality of asymmetric warfare. So prepare yourself for an unabridged, purely analytical briefing on the 2026 Red Square Standoff, because right now, the map of global power is being entirely redrawn in real time, and we need to talk about it. Okay, let's dive into this briefing. We've got 5 strategic theaters to evaluate today. Number 1, the 2026 Moscow siege. Number 2, the Japan energy paradox. Number 3, geography and survival strategy. Number 4, the unresolved 1945 peace. And finally, number 5, the Pacific Axis pivot. Let's get right into it. Section 1, the 2026 Moscow siege, May 7, 2026, a city on lockdown. Right, so it is May 7, 2026. Normally, Moscow should be absolutely echoing with the roar of T-14 Armada engines for the Victory Day parade. But today, there was just this haunting silence. For literally the first time in the modern era, Russia has completely stripped its Victory Day parade of heavy armor. And the reason for this? A massive swarm of Ukrainian Falcon drones is currently sitting just 40 miles outside the city limits. 40 miles. You have to understand, this isn't a traditional mechanized advance with tanks and infantry. It's an entirely new doctrine of warfare. These autonomous, incredibly low-flying systems have completely bypassed traditional radar nets. They've slipped through air defense corridors, exploiting these tiny gaps in the border's electronic warfare canopy. By bringing the threat this close to the capital, the operational dynamic has shifted in an instant. The Kremlin isn't showing military strength today. They are being forced to project an invisible shield just to survive the morning. As of 9 a.m. today, the Ministry of Digital Development initiated a total electronic blackout. Think about that for a second. GPS is dead. Mobile internet is gone. To protect the absolute heart of the government, Russia has effectively cut itself off from the rest of the world. Imagine a sprawling megacity of over 12 million people suddenly thrust all the way back into the analog era. Emergency services, logistics, internal communications, they're all operating completely blind. Now, this electronic lockdown is specifically designed to scramble the targeting coordinates of that incoming drone swarm. But the cost? The cost is immense internal paralysis. It's a 21st century siege, where the walls are made of manipulated radio frequencies instead of stone and mortar. Section 2, the Japan energy paradox, this Sakhalin secret. But while the military is retreating into this defensive crouch over in the west, the economy is holding a secret, absolutely vital line in the east. Just hours ago, the tanker Voyager arrived in a Japanese port. Despite years of so-called unprecedented global sanctions, Japan has been forced right back to the negotiating table. The catalyst for this sudden shift is the 2026 Middle East fuel shock. Basically, a sudden and severe geopolitical crisis has effectively closed the Strait of Hormuz. That completely neutralizes the standard maritime supply routes that feed all of East Asia. Now, for an island nation like Japan, which imports nearly all of its energy, this isn't just some market fluctuation. It is an existential threat. Their national grid is literally on the brink of catastrophic failure. The closure of the strait has made Russian liquefied natural gas flowing right out of Sakhalin the only viable immediate resource standing between Japan and a total devastating blackout. Now, what's really interesting about this is the great energy paradox of 2026. On one side of the geopolitical ledger, Tokyo is actively arming Ukrainian forces with drone technology designed specifically to dismantle Russian armor. But on the flip side of that exact same ledger, they are wiring billions of yen directly to Moscow to keep their own power grid alive with Sakhalin gas. This reveals a brutal, unfiltered truth about the world in 2026. Geography and baseline survival always trump ideology. If a nation controls the base physical resources, they hold the ultimate leverage. It renders whatever diplomatic condemnations are spoken in Geneva entirely hollow. Section 3, Geography and Survival Strategy, the deep interior. Look at the flag. White, blue, red. In our previous study, we looked at this as a symbol of the land itself. And this brilliantly illustrates how, in 2026, the Russian tricolor has been geopolitically redefined. It's no longer just a banner of national identity. It operates as a literal map of their survival strategy. The white represents the frozen northern routes, these Arctic trade corridors that are newly accessible and firmly under Russian control. The blue represents the strategic, highly militarized waters of the Pacific, which is where their economic future now lies. And the red? Well, that symbolizes the blood of a grinding, asymmetric conflict that simply refuses to end. The flag isn't just a banner anymore. It is their playbook. Russia's geography has always been its greatest general, right? General winter, general distance. In 2026, they're executing a modernized version of a centuries-old playbook. They are playing the long game. By pulling their critical logistical assets, supply chains, and command structures deep back into the interior, they are practically daring the West to try and follow them into the void. This creates an absolute logistical nightmare for any advancing adversary. The 8-minute story of Russia is always a story of space, utilizing the sheer punishing scale of the Earth to absorb attacks and outlast their enemies' political and economic patience. Section 4. The Unresolved 1945 Peace. The Ghost of 1945. To truly understand why this digital siege hurts the national soul so much, you have to look back to 1945. This Victory Day parade is the absolute foundation of the modern Russian identity. It commemorates the day they solidified their status as the victors of Europe. By losing the ability to hold this parade in its full armor-clad glory in 2026, the Kremlin is making a staggering domestic concession. They are openly admitting to their own populace that the geography of the front line is no longer just some distant television broadcast. Psychologically and electronically, the front line has finally reached the physical steps of the Kremlin. And honestly, the domestic perception of this vulnerability is arguably just as dangerous to the state's internal stability as the drone swarm itself. So, the crucial point is, why can't Russia and Japan simply agree to secure their shared energy interests? It seems obvious, right? Well, it's because of 1945. Believe it or not, they still haven't signed a formal peace treaty to end the Second World War. The dispute centers entirely on the Kuril Islands. These remote volcanic outposts remain the stolen land in the eyes of Tokyo, an unresolved historical grievance that they simply cannot politically abandon. Conversely, Moscow views them as the invincible shield, a non-negotiable strategic buffer that guards the entrance to the Sea of Okhotsk and protects their nuclear submarine fleet. So in 2026, even as billions in oil and gas flow south from Sakhalin just to keep Japan's lights on, the ghosts of the 1940s are still sitting directly at the negotiation table, effectively preventing any permanent, stabilized peace. Section 5. The Pacific Axis Pivot. Anchored in the Pacific, the 2026 Victory Day reveals a Russia that has officially and systematically turned its back on Europe. The energy pipelines are now pointing east. The military and technological alliances are pointing east. The geography of the future is no longer tethered to the Atlantic or European integration. It is entirely anchored in the Pacific axis. This is literally the most significant shift since the fall of the Berlin Wall. Why? Because it completely rewires global trade and it fundamentally isolates NATO from the vast resource pools of the Asian continent. By reorienting toward the Pacific, a new self-sustaining economic bloc is being formed, one that operates entirely outside the jurisdiction of Western financial systems and traditional maritime choke points. Let's look at how this timeline builds. As the 81st Victory Day concludes, under the quiet hum of an electronic lockdown, the overriding strategic lesson is incredibly clear. History and geography operate in a permanent loop. In 1945, superpowers fought for the physical surface of the land. In 1989, they fought over the ideological walls built upon that land. By 2026, the doctrine has pivoted entirely. They are now fighting for the pure, indispensable energy buried deep inside that land. The names of the political players change. The weapons evolve from heavy armor to autonomous drone swarms, but the map of power remains securely tethered to the earth. Russia is barricading itself, using distance and radio frequencies to wait out the storm, while the world watches an entirely new doctrine of warfare unfold. So the question we are left with is this. In a future where absolute resource scarcity dictates foreign policy, who truly holds the power? The nation with the most advanced military, or the one holding the keys to the world's fuel?